The internet is in complete chaos right now because what started as a celebrity love story between Cardi B and Offset has now exploded into one of the most dramatic, emotional, and controversial breakups in hip-hop history. This isn't just a relationship ending anymore. It's a non-stop storm of divorce filings, custody battles, leaked videos, viral audio rants, financial wars, and even shocking courtroom twists that keep pulling new attention every single week. Cardi B and Offset were once seen as a powerful music industry couple, but behind the fame and success, their relationship turned into a cycle of breakups, reconciliations, and rising tension that fans could never fully understand. And now, that cycle has turned into something far more intense. From emotional outbursts on social media to accusations flying back and forth, from legal demands involving millions of dollars to paternity questions being raised in court, this situation has gone way beyond typical celebrity drama. Every time it feels like things are calming down, something new drops and the entire internet gets pulled right back into the chaos. But the biggest question right now is simple. How did things get this far out of control between Cardi B and Offset? Because behind all the viral clips, headlines, and online reactions, there is a deeper story of love, betrayal, pride, money, and a connection that somehow refuses to fully disappear, even after everything. And what you're about to see next reveals exactly why this is not just a breakup. It's an ongoing war that the world can't stop watching. And what you're about to see next reveals exactly why this is not just a breakup. It's an ongoing war that the world can't stop watching. To understand how things escalated this far, we have to go back to where it all began. Cardi B and Offset first crossed paths during the rise of their careers in the hip-hop world. At the time, both were climbing fast in the music industry, Cardi as a breakout solo star and Offset as a key member of the group Migos. In 2017, the two officially got married. On the surface, it looked like a power couple moment, two major artists coming together at the peak of their fame. But behind the scenes, things were far from perfect. Almost immediately after their marriage became public, rumors began circulating about trust issues and cheating allegations. While neither side fully confirmed everything at the time, the internet was already paying close attention. And that's where the pattern began. Breakup, reconciliation, apology, reunion. Over and over again. It became almost predictable for fans. Every time something went wrong, social media would explode. People would pick sides. Memes would spread. Then, just when things seemed completely over, Cardi B and Offset would appear together again, resetting the entire situation. For years, this cycle continued. But the turning point started quietly. In 2020, Cardi B filed for divorce for the first time. That was the moment many believed the relationship had finally reached its end. The filing was public, serious, and widely discussed. However, just months later, the couple reconciled. That comeback surprised many people, but it also reinforced a belief among fans. No matter how bad things got, Cardi and Offset somehow found their way back to each other. Still, something had changed. The energy was no longer the same. By 2023, Cardi B began making comments suggesting she had been single for a while, even before the public fully understood it. That statement hinted that the relationship may have already broken down privately long before any official announcement. Then came 2024, the real breaking point. Cardi B filed for divorce again, but this time the language was different. It wasn't emotional confusion or temporary frustration. It was final in tone. The court filing described the marriage as irretrievably broken, signaling that reconciliation was no longer part of the plan. And this time, things did not go back. But even though the romantic relationship ended officially, the connection between them did not disappear. Because they share children together. Culture, Wave, and Blossom became the permanent link between Cardi B and Offset, meaning no matter what happened legally, their lives would always remain connected. And that's where the situation shifted from emotional breakup into legal complexity. Custody arrangements started becoming a major part of the discussion. Both sides wanted control over how parenting would be structured, where the children would primarily live, and how responsibilities would be divided. But what made things even more intense was the financial side of the divorce. Offset later filed requests involving spousal support, which shocked the internet due to the public perception of Cardi B's significantly higher net worth. Reports placed Cardi's wealth far above Offset's, creating a massive financial gap that turned into another point of tension. Cardi did not stay silent. Through social media and live streams, she openly expressed frustration about the situation, describing emotional exhaustion and the pressure of being tied to a process that felt never-ending. At certain moments, her tone shifted from calm explanation to raw emotion, revealing just how deeply the situation was affecting her mentally. She described feeling stuck in a cycle she wanted to escape from, but legally could not fully step away from yet. And while all of this was happening, Offset also continued to respond through legal filings and public statements, further fueling media attention. The situation became less about a breakup and more about a drawn-out battle unfolding in real time. Every new filing, every statement, and every leaked detail added another layer to the story. The internet, of course, amplified everything. Clips went viral within minutes. Old interviews resurfaced. Past arguments were reanalyzed. Every small update turned into a trending topic. And with every cycle of attention, the pressure increased on both sides. But what made this situation even more complicated was that despite everything happening legally and publicly, there were still moments that showed emotional connection between them. At times, Cardi and Offset would still react to each other indirectly through posts, lyrics, or interviews. Even silence between them was interpreted as communication. And that's what made this story so unpredictable. Because it wasn't clean. It wasn't finalized emotionally, even when it was legally in progress. It existed in a strange space between separation and connection, where both sides were moving forward, but still reacting to each other's presence. And as the divorce process continued, things only became more layered. Custody discussions, financial disagreements, emotional statements, and public reactions all started blending together into one continuous narrative. The result was a situation that no longer had clear boundaries. It wasn't just, they broke up. It became, they broke up, but they're still dealing with each other. And that distinction is what kept the entire world watching. Because every time it looked like things might settle, another update would emerge, pulling the story right back into focus. And that brings us to the next phase of this saga, where everything escalates even further, and the situation moves beyond emotional conflict into legal and public chaos that nobody expected. And that brings us to the next phase of this saga, where everything escalates even further, and the situation moves beyond emotional conflict into legal and public chaos that nobody expected. Because once the divorce moved deeper into court proceedings, the tone of the entire situation changed completely. What was once seen as a celebrity breakup now started resembling a long, drawn-out legal battle with emotional, financial, and personal stakes increasing every step of the way. One of the first major shifts came when custody arrangements became more detailed and contested. While both Cardi B and Offset publicly expressed love for their children, disagreements reportedly emerged over parenting logistics, residency decisions, and involvement in day-to-day care. These discussions were no longer casual or emotional. They were being handled through legal filings, lawyers, and formal court structures. And as the legal process intensified, so did public interest. Every new document that surfaced, every alleged filing update, and every reported demand immediately became viral discussion material. But the most controversial turning point came when financial demands entered a new phase. Reports indicated that Offset had requested spousal support during the divorce process. This move shocked many observers due to the widely known financial gap between the two artists. Cardi B, one of the highest-earning female rappers in the industry, reportedly holds a significantly higher net worth compared to Offset. That gap alone turned the spousal support request into a viral talking point across social media. But Offset's position, according to circulating reports, was tied to contributions made during the marriage and the shared financial ecosystem they built together over the years. This is where public opinion split sharply. Some people argued that marriage is a partnership and financial claims are legally valid regardless of public perception. Others felt the request was surprising given the visible difference in earnings and career trajectories. And as expected, Cardi B did not remain silent. Through social media platforms and live stream discussions, she expressed frustration over the ongoing legal pressure and emotional toll. Her statements reflected exhaustion, describing the process as draining and overwhelming at times. She also emphasized her desire to move forward, but acknowledged that the legal structure of divorce does not always align with emotional readiness. And that gap between emotional closure and legal closure became one of the defining elements of this entire situation. Because even when individuals are ready to move on personally, the court process often continues long after. Meanwhile, the internet continued to amplify every detail. Old clips resurfaced. Past interviews were reanalyzed. Even lyrics from both artists were reinterpreted as hidden messages about their relationship. And in the world of social media, nothing stays private for long. Even silence becomes content. Even absence becomes a statement. But what truly escalated the situation further was how frequently emotional reactions from both sides appeared online in different forms, sometimes directly, sometimes indirectly. A single post, a live stream comment, or even a subtle caption was enough to trigger massive discussion threads. At this point, the relationship was no longer just between two individuals. It had become a public narrative that millions of people were actively analyzing in real time. And then came another layer that changed everything again, the introduction of new relationship dynamics outside the marriage. Reports and rumors surrounding Cardi B's personal life after separation added further complexity to the situation. At the same time, Offset's own public presence continued to draw attention, creating overlapping narratives that constantly fed into each other. This is where the story stopped being linear. Instead of a clear before and after, everything became interconnected. Past, present, and speculation all blended into one ongoing storyline. And that's what kept the audience engaged. Because there was no final answer, no clean ending, no moment where everything was officially resolved in a way people could fully understand and close the chapter. Then came another unexpected layer, viral content and alleged footage circulating online that reignited public attention yet again. Whether verified or not, these clips spread rapidly across platforms, fueling new waves of discussion. In today's digital environment, the speed of information often outweighs its accuracy, and that played a major role in how the narrative evolved. Each new piece of content, real or rumored, added fuel to an already burning situation. And as the internet dissected every detail, the emotional distance between Cardi B and Offset appeared to widen publicly, even while legal ties remained active. But here's what makes this situation different from typical celebrity breakups. Even with conflict, there are still moments of connection. Even with legal disputes, there is still shared history. And even with separation, there are still children binding both lives together permanently. That combination creates a dynamic that is extremely difficult to fully resolve. Because while a marriage can end on paper, the responsibilities and emotional ties often continue indefinitely. And that is exactly what we see playing out here. Two individuals trying to move forward, while still being tied together by law, family, and history. And just when it seemed like the situation might stabilize into a quieter phase, another wave of developments brought it right back into public focus. Court-related updates, financial claims, and personal statements all resurfaced again, proving that this story was far from reaching its conclusion. Because in situations like this, there is no true final chapter until every legal, emotional, and personal thread is resolved. And as of now, those threads are still very much active. Which leads us into the most recent and most intense phase of this entire saga, where legal pressure, emotional history, and public attention collide once again in a way that no one involved can fully escape. Which leads us into the most recent and most intense phase of this entire saga, where legal pressure, emotional history, and public attention collide once again in a way that no one involved can fully escape. Because at this point, the situation is no longer just about a divorce. It has evolved into a long-running, multi-layered conflict that stretches across courtrooms, social media platforms, personal lives, and public perception, all at the same time. And the most shocking part? It refuses to settle. Even as new updates arrive, the old tensions never truly disappear. They just resurface in different forms. One of the most serious developments in this final phase is the ongoing court involvement that continues to shape both Cardi B and Offset's lives. What started as divorce proceedings has now expanded into repeated legal motions, requests, and counter-requests that keep the case active and unresolved. Custody discussions remain central, with both sides focused on protecting their parental rights while also dealing with disagreements about structure, access, and responsibilities. And while both artists publicly express love for their children, the legal system requires details, structure, and decisions that cannot be made emotionally. That contrast between emotion and law is one of the biggest reasons this situation continues to drag on. Because emotionally, people move on. But legally, everything must be documented, negotiated, and finalized step by step. And in this case, those steps have been slow and complicated. Meanwhile, financial disputes continue to remain part of the conversation. The earlier spousal support discussions only added more tension to an already sensitive situation. Every new claim or filing brings fresh debate online, with audiences dissecting every detail as if it were part of a larger unfolding storyline. And in the middle of all this, the internet remains fully engaged. Every update becomes a trending topic. Every rumor becomes a debate. Every silence becomes speculation. That constant attention creates pressure not just on the legal process, but on the individuals involved as well. Because when your personal life becomes public content, there is no real pause button. And that is exactly what Cardi B and Offset have been dealing with for years now. Even moments that appear unrelated on the surface often get pulled back into the larger narrative. A performance, a lyric, a social media post, everything is analyzed, interpreted, and connected back to the ongoing situation. And that level of scrutiny changes how people behave, respond, and even communicate. But perhaps the most powerful element in this entire story is the emotional complexity that still exists beneath all the legal and public noise. Because despite everything, the divorce filings, the arguments, the accusations, and the public exchanges, there is still a shared history that cannot be erased. Years of marriage, children together, a life built and lived in the public eye. That kind of connection does not simply disappear, even when separation is finalized on paper. And that's why moments of emotional contradiction still appear from time to time. Small reactions, indirect references, subtle changes in tone. Things that remind the public that this is not just a legal case, it is a deeply human situation involving two people whose lives are permanently intertwined. And that complexity is what keeps the story alive. Even when headlines fade, interest returns. Even when things calm down, new developments restart the cycle. Because this isn't a story with a clean ending. It is an ongoing situation shaped by time, history, and public attention. At this stage, what we are seeing is not just conflict, but coexistence under pressure. Two individuals trying to build separate paths while still being connected through law, family, and shared past experiences. And that balance is extremely difficult to maintain, especially when the world is constantly watching. Adding to that, the digital age ensures that nothing ever truly disappears. Old clips resurface. Past statements get recirculated. New interpretations are built on old moments. And the cycle continues again and again. This creates a layered narrative where past and present constantly overlap. And in that overlap, clarity becomes harder to find. Because every angle has context. Every action has history behind it. And every reaction has consequences that extend beyond the moment itself. Which is why this situation continues to dominate attention even after years of development. It is not just about what is happening now. It is about everything that happened before and everything people believe is still unfolding behind the scenes. And as long as those elements remain unresolved, the story will continue to evolve. Not in chapters that end cleanly, but in waves that rise, fall, and rise again. So when people see the latest viral footage, the newest court update, or the next social media reaction between Cardi B and Offset, they are not just seeing a moment. They are seeing a continuation of a much larger narrative. A narrative built on love, conflict, fame, pressure, and the reality that some connections are too complex to ever fully disappear. And even now, as this phase settles into yet another cycle of public discussion and private legal movement, one truth remains clear. This story is still not finished. It is still unfolding. And the world is still watching every single step. Now that you've seen the full breakdown of everything happening between Cardi B and Offset, the question really comes down to you. Do you think this situation has gone completely out of control because of the internet, leaked clips, and constant public attention? Or do you believe this is what happens when a relationship, marriage, and family becomes so public that every single detail turns into headline news? Because what we've seen here is not just a breakup. It's divorce filings, custody battles, financial disputes, viral footage, emotional reactions, and court-level decisions all happening at the same time. And somehow, through all of this, the story is still not fully over. So where do you stand? Was Cardi B right to speak out publicly and defend herself throughout this entire process? Or should both sides have handled everything privately behind closed doors instead of letting it turn into global entertainment? And what about Offset? Do you think his actions are being misunderstood, or is the criticism justified based on everything that has come out so far? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We want to hear your real opinion, no filters, no hesitation. Every perspective matters because this is one of those stories where everyone sees something different. And if you enjoyed this deep breakdown, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe for more real, detailed, and explosive celebrity story coverage like this. Because in stories like this, there's always another update waiting to drop. Stay tuned.